This is a map that shows the impact of tariffs on farmers across the country. Hundreds of thousands of them work in industries that are impacted by tariffs. These are the states that voted for Trump, and you can see the overlap. China and Canada placed retaliatory tariffs focusing on the Midwest and the South, and that's intentional. This is meant to send a message to the president and apply pressure to Republicans who have to answer to their own constituents. Farming is an easy target because the United States exports more than $100 billion of agricultural goods each year. Let's look at where I'm from, Iowa. Iowa is a top producer of corn, it's a major producer of soybeans, which is a big export, and it's the second largest agricultural exporting state. The state's largest export market is Canada, and the fourth largest is China. For farmers, these kinds of export sales can determine whether they stay afloat. China and Canada place tariffs on corn, soybeans, and a list of other U.S. farm products. This makes it more expensive for buyers to purchase U.S. farm goods. That can make the buyers turn to cheaper products from Argentina or Brazil instead, and it's hard for U.S. farmers to get those markets back. Farmers have been the target of trade wars before, like in Trump's first term, when agricultural exports plummeted by more than $27 billion. The impact was so bad that the White House had to bail out farmers with subsidies of over $20 billion. Trump gave several buckets of payments to farmers in his first term for the trade war, for pandemic assistance, and some said that was an effort to shore up their political support. Farmers are still a strong voting bloc for Trump. About 77% voted for President Trump. The trade war was painful for farmers the first time around, but this time it could be much worse because the tariffs are bigger, the retaliation is bigger, and the economy is feeling more brittle. Since the industries impacted will disproportionately affect his base, Trump has changed his tone on tariffs from this,
"Tariffs are going to make us rich as hell. It's going to bring our country's businesses back,"
to something a bit more realistic.
We may have short-term a little pain, and people understand that.
When you get into these tit-for-tat cycles of tariffs and retaliation, trade wars can spiral out of control, and that can have very painful consequences for farmers and other everyday Americans.
We have some big news right now. Donald Trump's tariffs on China are impacting farmers the most, and many of them have buyer's remorse for even voting for Donald Trump in the first place. One of the top products that is tariffed is the U.S. soybean, and U.S. soybean exports, according to CNN, are now subject to a total tariff of 135% because of the 10% tariff imposed in March, along with the 125% tariff announced last week. If you recall, back in 2018, the winner of the first U.S.-China trade war wasn't U.S. farmers, but rather Brazil, because Brazil became the world's leading soybean exporter. And since then, exports to China have grown 280%, while U.S. exports have remained flat. Many soybean farmers in the Midwest actually voted for Donald Trump. They come from states that are red states that voted for Donald Trump consistently, both in 2016 and in 2024. And Trump had long promised exemptions or support for farmers, but they haven't received any bailouts just yet. And some are now even having buyer's remorse because their businesses are going to suffer because they can't export the number of soybeans that they were before. As always, I'll do a full breakdown on my Substack, link to my bio, so subscribe for free and follow along for all the news you need to know about.
Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, thank you for stopping by. And if you're already subscribed, you already know how much we appreciate you. We've been covering a lot of breaking news lately, but today we're turning our focus to the land, to the very people who keep America fed, clothed, and running. And what's happening right now in America's heartland should make all of us pay attention. Farmers across the United States, including those in deep red MAGA country, are crying out for help. Trump's policies, especially his tariffs and trade wars with China, have pushed many to the brink of financial ruin. What was once sold as a bold plan to revive American greatness is now being experienced as a devastating blow to rural economies. And the irony? The states that voted hardest for Trump, the ones that turned out in droves waving red hats and MAGA flags, are now the most deeply affected by the fallout. This isn't some media spin. The statistics are undeniable. Bankruptcy, crop loss, and plummeting exports are hitting MAGA states harder than anywhere else. Yet amid all the hardship, some MAGA farmers are still holding the line, calling this pain a necessary sacrifice for the promise of a stronger America. But that narrative is starting to wear thin, and many are beginning to question what they were really signing up for.
Tariffs, initially touted as a way to bring China to its knees, have instead brought American soybean farmers to theirs, With exports plummeting and prices in freefall, the future of American agriculture and the rural communities it sustains hangs precariously in the balance. Speaking of reaping rewards, let's talk about Brazil for a second. Now, Brazil's a lovely country. Beaches, samba, a worrying amount of deforestation, it's got it all. But one thing Brazil didn't have a few years ago was a stranglehold on the global soybean market. Oh, how things have changed. Since the trade war began, Brazil's soybean exports to China have skyrocketed. We're talking a 280% increase, folks. That's not a typo. While American farmers are struggling to sell their beans, Brazilian farmers are buying bigger tractors, building bigger silos, and generally living the good life. And who can blame them? They're simply filling a demand that the US has, shall we say, vacated. The irony, of course, is that this was entirely avoidable. Back here in the States, it's a different story. The warehouses are overflowing with unsold soybeans and farmers are feeling the pinch. Remember those rising costs I mentioned earlier? Yeah, those haven't gone away. Fuel, fertilizer, equipment, everything costs more. Meanwhile, the price of soybeans has plummeted, thanks in no small part to the trade war. It's a classic case of getting squeezed from both ends. Many farmers, already burdened with debt, are facing an impossible choice. Sell their crops at a loss and hope to break even, or hold on to them and pray for a miracle. Neither option is particularly appealing. Bankruptcy rates in farm country are soaring, and rural communities are feeling the ripple effects. Stores are closing, schools are struggling, and the very fabric of rural life is fraying at the seams.
As a farmer, how are these tariffs going to affect your food bill? So first off, I want to say there may actually be some short-term benefits, and that is in supply shock with price. A lot of the food produced was supposed to go internationally. However, it may stay domestically here because of the tariffs, which should create a drop in price if there's not any greed in the grocery stores. However, long-term, it doesn't look that good. For example, our farm, 100% of the potatoes that we grow stays in country here. However, some of our inputs we do buy from across the border, and that may be added to the 25% tariff lift, which unfortunately a lot of that would get passed down to you, the end consumer. Now, if our government was smart, they would be reducing taxes elsewhere, since they are going to be making billions of dollars off of these tariffs, and hopefully it's on some essential services and goods, not just like a one-time gift. But guys, this is why it is so important to be supporting local, because local at the end of the day will support you. For example, our farm was planning on doing 3 ugly potatoes days this year, but because of these tariffs, we might have to move that to 5. And that's why we're so excited to partner with about 15 other farms this year who care about our communities, and our goal is to give away 500,000 pounds of produce at one event. So stay tuned, because we're going to be announcing some news about ugly potato days and possibly even breaking a Guinness World Record. You're not going to want to miss it.
Let's break this down. The crisis didn't just appear overnight. Trump's trade war with China began as an aggressive economic maneuver, with tariffs slapped on steel, electronics, and most significantly for farmers, agricultural goods. China responded with tariffs of its own, targeting you. Soybeans, corn, pork, and other key exports. The result? Billions of dollars in lost trade with you. Farmers caught directly in the crossfire. China was once the largest buyer of American soybeans. Today, they've turned to other countries like Brazil and Argentina, and those markets aren't coming back anytime soon. American farmers are now finding themselves with surplus crops, falling prices, and no place to sell. Add in skyrocketing costs for fuel, fertilizer, and equipment, and you've got a perfect storm. To cushion the blow, the Trump administration rolled out farm bailout packages, totaling billions of dollars in subsidies. But those payments weren't evenly distributed, and many small, independent farmers say they were either shortchanged or left out altogether. The support came late, was wrapped in red tape, and didn't address the long-term damage. According to recent data, farm bankruptcies are climbing, especially in MAGA strongholds like Iowa, Nebraska, Missouri, and Kansas. Equipment repossessions are on the rise. Suicide hotlines for farmers are reporting higher call volumes. These aren't just numbers. These are families, legacies, and entire rural communities unraveling under the weight of policies they once trusted. And while some MAGA farmers are doubling down on their support, framing this as a noble battle against globalization, others are no longer buying it. We're seeing more farmers speak out at town halls, on TikTok, and even in conservative forums. There's a slow but steady shift happening, And it's not just about economics. It's about trust, about betrayal, about realizing that loyalty to a political brand doesn't plow fields or pay bills.
Hi, everyone. So today, Trump's tariffs take effect. His message to Florida's farmers: have fun. As the past commissioner of agriculture for this state, let me explain what that actually means for Florida's farmers and our food supply. Canada is Florida agriculture's largest trading partner. No other nation buys more of Florida's produce than Canada, accounting for over $5 billion in trade every single year. They buy our seafood, our citrus products, fruits, and vegetables. So with the introduction of a 25% tariff of imports overnight and now Canada's response, it will be Florida's farmers who will feel the squeeze. Food supply chains will be completely disrupted. Trump promised to lower costs on day one. Not only did he not do it, but now we're facing an unprecedented trade war that will send prices soaring through the roof. Now more than ever, we must use our voices to send a message to Washington, D.C. Stop taxing Americans to pay for trade wars and tantrums. The cost is just way too high.
A lot of us here in Wisconsin are starting to realize that we made a mistake voting for him. A lot of us here own dairy farms, and they are literally about to go out of business because, see, the tariffs on Canada and Mexico, they're actually really bad for us. 40% of our products are sold to Mexico and Canada, and now they're canceling all of our deals. All of our product being sold to them is not going to happen anymore. So, like, he did say that he kind of wanted to start a tariff war with Mexico and Canada, and we voted for him anyway, even though it might directly bankrupt us. So, like, what was that about? I mean, we just did it. We just did it, and it makes no sense at all. I mean, comment and tell me what you guys think. Does it make sense for people who sell most of their goods to our foreign allies to vote for someone who said they were going to destroy that whole relationship? Does anyone in Wisconsin regret what they've done now besides us?
So here we are, America's farmers, once seen as the backbone of the MAGA movement, are now among its most wounded. They were promised prosperity, pride, and protection. Instead, they've been handed a bill for a trade war they never asked for, and the cost is devastating. This is what FAFO looks like in real time. F*** around and find out isn't just a slogan anymore. It's become a season, a reality, a rude awakening that no red hat can shield them from. The question now is, how long will this loyalty last? Are we witnessing the beginning of a political reckoning in the heartland? Or will the myth of American greatness, no matter how painful its consequences, continue to hold sway? Let us know what you think down in the comments. Are these farmers victims of bad policy, misplaced trust, or both? Have MAGA voters finally reached a breaking point? As always, credit to the brave reporters, independent creators, and rural voices who are shining a light on what's really happening out there. This isn't just about politics, it's about people. Real people. If you value content that digs deeper, asks harder questions, and tells stories that matter, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video. We're not done covering the fallout, and we'll be back soon with more stories from America's real front lines. Until next time, take care of yourselves and take care of each other.